So good afternoon all. So welcome to today's Facebook Live Talk. So today's Facebook Live Talk is on the occasion of World Mental Health Day, which was on the last month of October, the 10th of October. So we celebrate this mental health awareness program. So entire October we had seen the most common topic of mental health, that is depression. Uh, so today we have some interesting topic like human sexuality an integral part of mental health. So to talk on this the interesting topic today we have with us Dr. Anand Patel sir. Sir is a consultant psychiatrist associated with Center of Mental Health and Counseling, which is situated at Bitco Point, Nasik Road, and sir is also attached to Sahara De-Addiction and Rehab Center, which is at Lam Road, Nasik Road. So I request Dr. Anand Patel sir to take over the session and guide us onto the how the human sexuality can impact one's mental health. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Prashant, and good afternoon to everybody. So today's topic is very interesting, isn't it? Human sexuality, and which is an integral part of mental health. So basically, what is health? Health, we can say it is the condition of the mind and the body. And what is sexuality? So when you hear this word sexuality, what comes to your mind? I mean, what I thought was about sex and sexual intercourse. But actually, sexuality is much more than that. Sex is just one part of it, but sexuality is about attitudes, it's about feelings, thoughts, behavior, concepts, beliefs, fantasies. It's about roles that you play in your day-to-day life. It's about relationships. And it's also about neurotransmitters and hormones. So it's a big spectrum. So what is sexuality? When does sexuality start in our lives? The sexuality starts right at the time we are conceived. We are conceived from an act of sex or love. So it begins with our conception. And when we are born, the first thing that people notice is whether you're a boy or you're a girl. So it's like, our first identity that we assume is whether I'm a boy or a girl. It's about the sex, gender that you are. And you must have seen that boys and girls are brought up in different ways. Boys are allowed to play. Girls have, there are a lot of restrictions on girls. Girls are told, don't sit like this, don't laugh like this, be careful, stay away from boys. So many restrictions we put on girls as compared to boys. So the boys and the girls, they notice these things since childhood, that there are differences, in the way they are treated. So that has an impact. And as the child grows, you teach the child, the body parts. So it's a common scene in the house. Ki dole dakho, show me your eyes, show me your ears. So one by one, each body part is introduced. But very often, parents skip the genital parts, maybe because they are not comfortable talking about them, or they don't know how to talk about. So that part is skipped. And whenever the child is exploring everything through touch, so if the child touches the genital parts, immediately the parents, most parents, they scold the child. They tell him, no, don't touch your genitals. And sometimes, in some houses I've heard, they use the words, it is shame. So right from the childhood, very often this word shame is attached to the sexual organs. So the child knows there is something different about this part. And this, because the child is curious, so he's going to ask questions. So every time the child asks questions related to the sexual organs or related to how babies are, where do babies come from, or how did I come? So many questions the child is curious about. And some parents, they say that you'll come to know when you grow up. So the child is not encouraged to ask questions. Actually, these are teachable moments. At whatever age the child may ask questions, there is always a way of telling the child something about it in the language that the child may understand at that age. So these are opportunities actually to educate the child. But some parents, they miss those opportunities. They feel awkward themselves. And the child also notices, the child is very perceptive, observes very carefully that the parents' expressions change, when such questions are asked. So the child realizes that there is something different about this topic or this part of his life, some taboo about it. And that's the way the child grows up. So as the child further grows up, the child has so many questions, and if the parents don't answer the questions, where will the child find the answers? Of course, the internet. Nowadays, the children operate their parents' mobiles or iPads, or the computers at home, laptops. So the child is curious. So the child is bound to go to the internet if you don't answer his or her questions. And when the child starts exploring answers on the internet, the child gets introduced inevitably to pornography. So it's very surprising. You might not be knowing that, at a very young age, children get exposed to pornography. And sometimes it is a shocking experience to them. Or, what the parents should have taught the children, the sex education part, which is as essential as any other education. The child learns from pornography. And as you know, pornography is the way they show sex in pornography is absolutely there's no element of love or expression of love or an act of love in pornography. It's often an expression of lust or an act of lust. And if the children, they grow up watching porn, they're going to believe that this is how sex is supposed to be. And have you noticed that there is a lot of element of aggression and humiliation in pornography, and it's often directed towards the female partner. And surprisingly, it is shown that the female partner is actually enjoying those things, without complaining or trying to show that she's actually enjoying. So children, boys and girls, they grow up watching these things. So they may be thinking that this is supposed to be like this. And that's how the attitudes start shaping up. So as they grow further, as there are changes in the body, on the hormones are developed, sexual hormones are developing, the body is developing, and the children are curious, and they discover that the sexual organs, they feel different when touched, and that's how they sometimes discover masturbation, or they discover they hear it from their friends or from their elders, or sisters, or classmates, and then they start experimenting with it. And it is definitely a normal part of growing up. And all those myths about masturbation and the fears about masturbation should be dispelled by proper sex education, because otherwise the child may feel guilty that am I doing something wrong? Or, so that also has a big impact, because the child is torn between the guilt and the natural impulses. So, and usually this happens because of the stimulus of pornography. Now, when the child is watching porn, the teens or teens are watching porn, they tend to develop concepts about how the human body should be. Usually in the porn, the kind of actors that they take, they're supposed to be in shape. The child has a visual image, understanding or impression about how a person should be. And of course, the child also is the teen is also wondering how come they last so long? They go on for hours together, and the size of the organ is so big. So these things, sometimes bring about a sense of inadequacy in the male or the female teen, and they start doubting themselves. Is there something wrong with me? That affects their self-esteem, their self-image, their confidence levels. So this is how pornography impacts a child's psyche. So as they grow up, so there is a phase, when they start, experiencing an attraction towards the opposite sex, or sometimes towards the same sex, and then they start, all these things should be discussed, about what is attraction, what is infatuation, what is love, how are relationships, how relationships should be, what are priorities in which age. All these things, there should be an open communication, especially with the parents. So that is how the attitudes will shape up, the belief system, the concepts will develop. So when this, not just information about sexuality, but also the child needs to be educated about information about emotions, how to handle emotions. So all these things are an integral part, because these things are necessary to form good relationships. And good relationship is necessary to have a good sex life. And a good sex life plays a great role in having a great relationship. So when we humans, when we start get into a relationship, and when the active sex life starts, so it's very important to understand that a good sex life comes with experience, over a period of time, and with communication. So just like a good relationship builds on good communication, a good sex life also develops because of good communication. But to have a good communication, these four pillars are very important. One is love, one is respect, one is trust, and one is acceptance. So these four things are very essential to have a good relationship, to have good communication between the partners. Have you heard about this concept called as 5 love languages? There's a book written by Gray Chapman called 5 Love Languages, where he describes, primarily there are 5 love languages that people have. One is words of appreciation. The second is quality time. Third is giving gifts. The fourth is touch. And the fifth is helping out in day-to-day chores. So these are the 5 love languages. All of us, we have a primary love language, and our partner has a primary love language. So if we talk in the love language of our partner, the partner feels loved, the partner feels understood. And likewise, that happens with yours. So we educate ourselves, in so many subjects, but how to handle relationships, how to handle emotions, how to handle thoughts, these things are equally important. This education is equally important. So we have to do our homework. We have to read about it. We have to discuss about it. That's how we can sharpen our skills to have a good relationship. So do read this book if you get a chance. So if you work on having a good relationship, it will help in having a good sex life. So to have a good sex life, you also have to understand that there are many differences between two partners. Say, for example, men are, most men, not all, most men are supposed to be, less emotional as compared to women. Or, most men, they have, it's for them, sex is more biological, biologically driven. And for a woman, it's more of an emotional act. So these basic differences, if you understand, then it helps. Say, for example, how suppose if the husband and wife, they have a quarrel, in the morning, and the husband goes off to work and he's busy in the work, so he forgets about the quarrel, and and the wife is at home and she's thinking about the same thing, the same issue when she's cooking, when she's taking care of the house and the kids. So by the evening time, when the husband comes back, he's already forgotten about why he had quarreled, or maybe it has gone out of his mind. But the wife is still thinking about it, and the wife would, most women, they would like to discuss about it and then resolve that issue, and then they'll feel complete and they'll feel okay about it. And most men, they may, just have they have a different set of coping mechanism, so they may just forgive and forget, or just move on. So because of these differences in how men and women operate, the husband may expect that the wife should forgive him just because he has said sorry, and he would even show interest in coming close to her, becoming intimate with her. But the lady, she would not feel comfortable because she's not mentally prepared. So if she's not mentally prepared because she has unresolved issues in her mind, she's not going to be physically prepared also for sex. So if you understand these differences, so first, you have to communicate, talk, sort out things. And then would the wife feel understood, and she'll feel loved, and she'll feel like sharing love with you. So likewise, they say that communication, talking, is one of the best foreplays. Try it out. It's one of the best foreplays. So essentially, the sexual act, has these three things. One is foreplay, one is the actual sexual intercourse, and the third part is equally important, that is the afterplay. So when it comes to foreplay, again, this is where communication helps. So men and women, they have different erogenous zones in their body. It's not just the genitals which are the erogenous zones, but all over the body, there are various areas which are sexually responsive. So through communication, through experimentation, can the couple discover what their erogenous zones are? If there is open communication, the partner can tell you that oh, this feels better, do this more often. And that's how a good foreplay can lead to a good sex life. Here also, again, there are differences in men and women. Say, for example, the men are quick to arouse, whereas the women, they take time to get aroused. Their sexual response cycle is different. So if the men are quick to arouse, so they are likely to be quick to be satisfied or quick to have an orgasm, whereas the woman would take longer to achieve orgasm or to achieve heights of sexual pleasure. So these differences also guide you. So that's why the need for more foreplay, for the woman to be aroused enough for sexual intercourse to begin and to have satisfaction in the act. And this communication is important, and every time both of the partners are not going to get satisfied at the same time. So sometimes the man would come first and the woman would be yet to come. So there should be communication. So she could guide him how to help her, getting the orgasm. So that's why the need for good communication. So, I would also like to share a very specific information which could be very useful to everybody. Say, take an example. The man's genital organ is a multi-purpose organ. It is used for reproduction also. It is used for sexual pleasure also. It is used for the maturation also. But the woman's sexual organ, many people don't have a clear concept about the woman's sexual organ. Some people think that it's just the vagina. Some people know about the clitoris. But you'll be surprised to know that clitoris is not just what is visible on the top. That is just the hood of the clitoris. Clitoris, it is like the tip of the iceberg. Clitoris is actually a very big organ, which is under the vulva. So this, most people do not know this. No, they just concentrate on the tip of the clitoris, but actually the whole vulva is the woman's sexual organ, because the clitoris is beneath the vulva. So, the vulva can be stimulated in different ways, for the woman to get good arousal and hence a good sex life. And the most important part is the afterplay. In some couples, when the husband is done with his orgasm, so he loses interest because there is a change, in the sexual response cycle. There is a sudden dip in his interest levels, and he may just prefer to go off to sleep, or not care about whether his partner is satisfied or not. So that is to be avoided. In fact, after the sexual act is over, the couples who spend time together, talking about it, or being close, being intimate, they develop a even better bonding, and their relationship also grows better. There is a neurochemical basis for this also. When a couple is intimate, the levels of oxytocin in the body, they rise. That is the bonding hormone. It is a love hormone. So after play is equally important. So this is just in brief about how sexuality has not just sex, but so many things. Our childhood experiences, or the way we are brought up, they influence our attitudes towards relationships, towards sex, towards the whole world, towards the opposite sex. So all these things, they contribute to the makeup of our mind and our mental health. So some couples, they have problems in their in various areas of sexuality, maybe because of certain messages that they received in their childhood, or certain bad experiences, abuse experiences they had in their childhood, and it affects their sex life when they grow up. So that is where there needs to be work done in this area, because it's a fundamental part of a couple's relationship. So that is where they should seek counseling. So many women have a problem with desire. There is American data which says that 40% of women have a problem with desire and arousal. So just imagine, if it's American data, which is an advanced country, 40% women have this problem, then it might be the numbers might be bigger in India. And because there is a problem with desire and arousal, there are problems with orgasm and sexual satisfaction. Almost 60 to 70% men, they suffer from premature ejaculation. So these things, they hamper the sex life and the quality and the satisfaction levels, and in turn affect the relationship. And relationship is the fundamental thing in life. If there is a problem with the relationship, then it has an impact on the whole life. There are so many people who become anxious because of this. So many people become depressed because of this, and their overall quality of life suffers. So that is where qualified doctors, especially psychiatrists, who are trained to handle such cases, are should be consulted. The exact cause should be determined, and accordingly, a medical line of treatment or a psychotherapeutic line of treatment should be chosen. So in short, the couple should be free to discuss and talk about their intimacy issues between the two of them, and also if they need help, they should reach out for help. That will definitely go a long way in improving their overall health, physical and mental health, and the quality of life. So this is just an short, and we've just touched upon this topic briefly. If we could keep some time for questions, if the audience has some questions, so Prashant, maybe you could read the questions and select a few questions.
Yes, sir.
And we can take.
So, sir, we will first of all, sir, thank you very much for such an important and illustrative information. on to the most important topic which generally get neglected since childhood till adulthood. So, and thank you very much for your valuable insight from such a qualified person in the society, that because that is more what you can say, the authentic and in the generous manner. So we will take some of the questions. So the first question is from which age or from what point of time the difference between sexuality like male and female is started in anyone's life? So what do you think and what do you will suggest?
Hmm. So this, if I understand your question right, uh, the differences start from the childhood, from the birth itself. The way they are treated, as I discussed, from the way they are treated and the way they develop a concept about how it is to be a boy and how it is to be a girl, and how they are brought up in different ways. That's how the differences start. And there are definitely physiological differences also. In women especially, there are a monthly change in the hormones, which influences their moods also, their behavior also. So the physiological changes, the differences between the man and the woman, they also go a long way in determining the differences between the man and the woman.
Yes, sir. And so many of the time in our Indian society, the sex education is not taken so upfrontly, even in the school days. So how, what you will suggest the importance of sex education into the one's overall development, so that to build a good society for the nation?
Absolutely, it's a very important question. See, sex education will begin with the parents. The parents have so many teachable moments, for their children. When they ask questions, that is the time to seize the opportunity and tell the children in the language that they understand. It is very unfortunate that sex education is done by pornography, by internet, rather than parents and teachers. And even in the schools, when there are sex education classes, there are maybe a couple of day workshops, or sometimes in between classes are there. So at least some information about the sexual anatomy, the differences, and about the menstrual cycle, how to take care of during that period. And in the schools, they what the child is taught is there is a risk of pregnancy, there is a risk of sexually transmitted diseases. So there is an element of fear. There is may kuch danger hai. Something, uh, some element of danger is associated with sex. That is how it is portrayed. In the sex education classes, it is never told that it is an act of love, it is an act of pleasure. You know, it is a normal part of human sexuality. It's normal part of growing up. These things are often not handled. So it is important. It's an ongoing thing. It cannot be done in a 3-day workshop. The sex education happens right from childhood till adulthood. It keeps happening. In fact, even grown-up adults need to be educated in sex education when they come to us for counseling for sexual problems. There are so many myths and misconceptions about masturbation, about loss of semen, or about uh, sexual activity in general, that we have to remove those myths by counseling them, educating them, even grown-ups. So that describes the need for sex education, which is an ongoing process actually.
So, sir, is there any requirement for the curriculum itself that sex education should be the integral part of the education system itself? So, as you rightly said, the sex education, uh, the place of sex education is now has been taken by the pornography, or it has been fulfilled by the pornography rather than the education system which is there in our country. So that is now very much point you have mentioned. So the parents has to be inculcate and educate their child. And so my next question is the how the child has to be educated even for the some bad intentions. So we call it as a good touch and bad touch, especially for girls, and even for we can see now it is more common for the boys also in the teenagers, or even in the small boys. So how to identify and how to educate the child about the good touch and bad touch?
Right. It's a very important question. You would be surprised to know that sexual abuse in childhood is more common than all of you think. And like you rightly said, it's even boys and girls, both are sometimes a victim of sexual abuse. And the person who abuses is often somebody they know, some relative, some people living around, family, friends, sometimes cousins, elders who are known to them. And very often the child does not know that it is sexual abuse. The way it is portrayed is, it is portrayed in the form of a game. Let's play a game, and if you win, I'll give you this. If you do this, I'll give you that. There is a reward system. And the child sometimes, innocently doesn't know that this is something wrong that is happening, because the person is known to them, and it is the person is someone they trust. It is the parents' duties, to help right from their childhood. So they have to keep the communication open. And the best way to do this is that you cannot ask your child, sit down, I am going to talk to you about something. This is done through the opportunities that you get when the children ask questions about various things. So those teachable moments have to be made the most of. Right? And definitely the child needs to know that these are private parts. The child is allowed to only the child is allowed to touch his or her private parts. Nobody, no other person is allowed to. And if somebody is trying to touch them inappropriately, so they can be taught ways in which they can stop this abuse. They can scream, they can shout, they can loudly say no. They can say that I'm going to tell my parents. So this is the way they should be taught how to say no when they think, when they sense that something inappropriate is happening. The child has to learn to say no. So there are so many books also, which talk about how to educate children, about how to answer children's questions, how to teach them about good and bad touch. There are some good videos on YouTube. There are some very good books. In Nasik, there is an organization called as Abhivekti. They have come out with a blue book and a red book, which talks about sex education for different age groups. So there is fortunately, because of the internet, there is so much material available nowadays on YouTube also and on the net. So that's about it.
So, sir, thank you very much, sir, for providing the information and how to identify and how to educate the children about the good touch and bad touch. So now it's time to develop and the express and to create some personal etiquettes which can be educate to our child, and especially boys and girls. And sir, my next question is, so there are always we say there are restrictions for the girls. So हे घालायचं नाही, ते घालायचं नाही, असं नाही. So you are a girl, so मुलींनी असं नसतं करायचं. So because right now there is a time or is there any restriction should also be there for male or boys, so that in future so we can prevent any kind of sexual harassment or sexual assault at a bigger level, so that boys has to be given some restrictions and the proper do's and don'ts from the family itself.
Absolutely. Yeah. See, not only the girls, but the boys also need to be educated. And what is important is the children learn by observation. So the parents have a big responsibility, to show how they behave with each other in front of their children. The children are learning, watching, the way the father talks to the mother, or how the communication. That's how the children learn. So if the father respects the mother and vice versa, children are going to pick that up. They will learn the importance of respect. Only love is not enough. Love flourishes, when there is respect, when there is trust, when there is acceptance of, the strengths and the weaknesses of each other. So it is by example, that parents can teach their children. So they have a big responsibility of working on their own relationships, their marital relationship, for their children to learn good things from them.
Thank you, sir. So my next question is about, as in the latter part of your discussion, you talked about the sex life and the various problems and how the sex uh, life can impact onto the one's mental health. So many of the time it happens when there is some sexual problem in individual. So it might be sometimes considered as a pride issue or kind of a obsession is there about it. So that's why people may not be talkative enough, expressive enough. So what you will suggest them so that they can get the right treatment? It's not the issue of pride or issue of this is the issue of any health problem, the way other health problems are there in the body. So what you will be your message for such a audience, and they should come out forward and take the doctor's uh, treatment at the right time?
Right. It's a very good question. It is, say, because from the childhood, this topic is hushed, not discussed. So there is a taboo around this topic. So if it begins with the childhood, if there is open communication about sexuality also, then they won't make a big deal out of it. So like people have hypertension, people have diabetes, people have uh, different kinds of various illnesses, hormonal imbalances like hypothyroidism, thyroid disorders. Likewise, people can have sexual problems also. So if it's if the upbringing is if there is open communication during the growing up years, people are more comfortable. But suppose if somebody is feeling awkward about talking about their problems, so I have seen many patients, they tend to avoid their partners, just because they are having a problem, and then the partners are at a loss. They are imagining things. Okay, why is this person avoiding me? Does he love me, or does he love someone else? There's so many complications that happen because of avoidance. So it is important that the couple, there should be free communication, open communication between the couple also. And for things that you do not know how to figure out things, or how to solve the problem, it is always better to seek expert help. So now help is available in various forms. There are advertisements in the newspapers also about so-called sexologists. But sometimes some of them are quacks. But they're not qualified also, and at such places they often tend to frighten the couple. They frighten the couple so much that the couple is ready to spend any amount of money to get better. But that's not the way. So it's very important for the couple to go to qualified people, especially psychiatrists, who are trained to handle such cases. So thanks to the various self-awareness, mass awareness activities like this one, and so many people are writing the newspapers, there are talk shows that these are educating people, to dispel the myths and misconceptions about sexuality, and about encouraging people to seek help. So that's why I chose this particular topic, because it is so fundamental, so essential. It's one of the central parts of human existence, which is often neglected. So I thought that since it's the Mental Health Week month, somebody should address this topic. So I thought, let me take the lead.
Yes, sir, that is very rightly you said. Somebody has to take lead on such a neglected topic. So very few of you like you, sir, come forward and talk on such a the bold topic, we can say. So we ourselves has made it bold. Otherwise, it could have been another the normal topic of any mental health. But this taboo, as you rightly said, this taboo has been contributed to the or negligence has contributed majorly into development of this taboo regarding the talk on the sexual life. So my next question is, because nowadays our life has been become a more fast usage of technology, the social media, internet has taken a part of much part of our life, and even our food habits, the sedentary lifestyle. So how all these factor can impact onto the sexual life and later indirectly onto the mental health.
Yeah. So this is the problem century actually. I remember a couple who had come to me. They were married for 8 months, and they still have not consummated their marriage. That means they did not have not had successful sexual intercourse for the first 8 months of their marriage. And when I went into the reasons, the reason was the both of them were working for 8 to 10 hours. Would be so tired by the end of the day that they would thinking about sex was out of question. And what had happened was that because of certain anxieties that the man had, he had a problem with because of anxiety, just because of performance anxiety, he had a problem with sexual intercourse. So he would keep avoiding, under the disguise of being busy, and he would keep avoiding having sex with his wife. And it was such a it was a personal matter, so they would not seek help also. They were ashamed to, or they were embarrassed to seek help also. So just imagine in these days also, when both of them were engineers, even in this age, if people have problems in spite of the internet, and in spite of the education, they may have problems. So we need to slow down actually. We need to slow down. During this particular phase of life, the career is also developing and the relationship also new. So it's very difficult to balance between the two. But one has to remember that, you have the next 30, 40 years, to grow in the career also. So you need not, focus on your career first and then, the relationship later. Both things can be done simultaneously. There's a lot of time in the future, to achieve everything. Why do you want to achieve everything, soon? And, take too much, more than you can handle, and then get tired and fatigued, and lose the quality of life. So it is most essential to slow down. We recently had this wonderful experience because of the COVID. We had to slow down, and so many people, started enjoying doing little things, which gave them pleasure. It's not, pleasure is not in the big things. It is there in the small things also. So many small things, small pleasures add up to have a happy life. So we are here to enjoy this life also, not just accomplish things. We have to enjoy this life also. So just need to slow down, and especially in sex, people need to slow down so that they can actually enjoy all the five senses. All the five senses need to be incorporated in the sexual act, not just the genitals. So that we call that as mindful sex. Having mindful sex, it is like a meditative experience. To slow down, if you have mindful sex, the quality of the experience greatly improves, and the bonding also greatly improves. So slowing down, slow down, enjoy, smell the flowers. That is the message. Slow down and enjoy life.
Yes, sir. So it was a wonderful message. We have to be slow down in the today's world of such a fast world, and the COVID-19 has taught this. This pandemic has gave these insights and give these lessons to everybody that we should be slower down. And I hope in every year everybody should celebrate COVID vacations, and that can be for his own personal life as well as for family life, so that they can slow down, they can enjoy the various facets of life. So sir, my next question is about, can yoga and meditation can help, as you said, to get slower down and focus onto the relationship, so that ultimately one can have a peaceful mental health?
Surely. See, yoga, or for that matter, any form of exercise, whatever you like. It could be gymming, it could be dancing, it could be trekking, it could be jogging, walking, anything that you like, would definitely improve your physical and mental fitness, which is also necessary to have a good sex life and to have a better quality of life in general. Right? And yoga and meditation, what they help you learn is to be mindful. And being mindful in sex greatly improves the sexual experience.
So thank you, sir. So my next question is onto the many of the false ads which comes onto the OTC or in the newspaper. So many of the time people are become a victim of those the false claim or such a misleading advertisement. So what you will suggest for such a victims, so they should not become a victim of these type of the false claims, and they should go to the right doctor to seek the right treatment.
Right. See, nowadays, whenever anybody has a problem, they first go on the internet. And on the internet is the biggest platform for marketing, actually. So once you search something on the internet, there are advertisements on the same page, promoting products, that this product is helpful in this product will help you in this. So one has to understand that anybody who's marketing their product wants to have a good sale. It is not necessary that the testimonials that they say are going to be true. So internet or Google or is not the answer for problems. It is better to go to a qualified person, experienced person, and tell your problem, and the person will guide you appropriately.
So thank you, sir. So that was the last question, sir, about the medication. So, sir, what in general, how you will summarize your talk about the human sexuality and its impact on mental health?
Yeah. So basically, human sexuality is about a lot of things. It's about attitudes. It's about beliefs, fantasies, and it's about emotions, feelings, relationships. So it's an integral part of our day-to-day existence. It is such a central part that we have to learn about it. We have to be clear about it. We have to have master the skills. So it is related to your self-esteem. It is related to your self-image. It is related to your moods, your confidence levels. So it is not a topic to be neglected. Right? So I would just end with one statement. Like
Yes,
people
sure,
say,
sir.
yeah, people say that you have to find the right partner, look for the right partner. So I would say that be the right partner. Not just look for the right partner, but be the right partner.
Yes, yes, sir. Very true. Very true. So, and because of when we are always in search of right partner, and that's what the difference in the opinion, and there is a kind of a disturbance in the relationship is happen. So rather than focusing for making the relationship better, we are always thinking what is better than this relationship. So that is the problem I think arises. So, sir, thank you very much for your valuable time. So, thank you. First of all, I will thank you all our viewers, those who have joined us today on this Facebook Live. And I especially thank you, Dr. Anand Patil, sir, so that he has come out and given a talk and clear the myths and facts about the most important topic of mental health, that is the human sexuality, which has always been neglected since our childhood, and how to talk about the sex education in a right manner is important to develop a good generation as well as good community. So that is very much important. So thank you very much, Dr. Anand Patil, sir, for your valuable time as well valuable inputs for such a neglected topic, or we cannot say it neglected, but it cannot be the most talkative topic. So thank you very much, sir, for your valuable time.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.